Excuse me. Excuse me, could I have detention? Just want to say good evening. My name is Richard Ryan, and I'm the senior Washington correspondent for the Detroit News and president of the National Press Club. And I'm honored to welcome such a distinguished audience to the Press Club this evening. It is a tribute to Marvin Kalb, the man and the journalist, that so many people are here tonight to hear him talk about his latest book. Marvin, as I'm sure you all know, is a journalistic icon. He is what many of us in this business aspire to be, both successful and respected. During a distinguished 30-year career as chief diplomatic correspondent for CBS News and NBC News, and as moderator of Meet the Press, Marvin has won many awards for reporting. They include two Peabody Prizes from the University of Georgia, the DuPont Prize from Columbia University, and more than a half dozen overseas Press Club awards. Marvin is currently the executive director of the Washington office of the Joan Shorenstein Center on Press, Politics, and Public Policy. For the previous 12 years, he directed the center at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, and where he also taught and lectured. Next Tuesday, right here at the National Press Club, Marvin will interview CBS News anchor Dan Rather about the recent terrorist attacks on New York and Washington. The discussion is the first in a 7-part series entitled The Kalb Reports. But Marvin is here tonight to discuss his 10th and latest book. It's entitled One Scandalous Story: Clinton, Lewinsky, and 13 Days That Tarnished American Journalism. Donna Shalala, President Clinton's former Secretary of Health and Human Services, said this about Marvin's book: "Only a world-class journalist could dissect his own profession's reporting of the messy scandal that ruined a presidency. This is a brilliant, unsettling book." Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Marvin Kalb.
Thank you very much, Dick. I have to say that your leadership of the National Press Club has been truly inspiring. I mean, I have a sense of a beat in this place since you've taken over. So I salute you for the work that you've done. My thanks also to Jerry Zemsky, who is chair of the Professional Affairs Committee, which is sponsoring tonight's event. And Jerry is not here because, you know, reporters, he has to cover a story. And my thanks to John Bloom, who's general manager of the National Press Club. John took a shaky financial institution and he has turned it into a winner. And what can I possibly say about Julie Hsu, membership director of the club? She is fantastic, a very special person who has helped me in 1,000 ways. Thank you. Thank you. I start with a question. Is there a relationship between the reporting of a war against terrorism, which is where we are right now, and the political war that ransacked Washington 3 years ago in 1998 when President Clinton was caught where he shouldn't have been? My answer to the question, much to my pleasant surprise, has proven to be yes. Just the other day, I was at a meeting of Washington bureau chiefs here at the Press Club. The topic was coverage of the current scandal, crisis. Time and again, these excellent journalists referred to the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal as the time they learned certain lessons about contemporary journalism as practiced here in Washington, and they're now trying to apply to the coverage of terrorism. And I have to tell you, that made me feel awfully good. I spent a long time researching and writing this book for that basic reason. What could we learn from one experience that could possibly be applied to another? One scandalous story, it was certainly that. A president of the United States converted the Oval Office into an occasional frat house. He lied under oath before a grand jury, which led to his impeachment. Shamefully, he lied before the entire nation, angrily pointing his finger, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky." He disgraced the highest office in the land. It could even be argued that the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal left an unmistakable stench over the 2000 campaign, which George W. Bush neatly exploited at every whistle stop. Bush, you'll remember, promised to return dignity to the Oval Office. What could he possibly have had in mind? Because the story reeked of illicit sex between a president and an intern, and because it raised important legal and political questions, it sparked a prairie fire of copycat journalism that quickly spawned the publication of many books, all of them approaching the subject from a different vantage point depending on the author's background. Reporter Michael Isikoff led the parade, then Monica Lewinsky herself, then reporter Jeffrey Toobin, lawyer Lanny Davis, Post editor Bob Woodward, Matt Drudge. Speaking of Matt Drudge, he wrote the Drudge Manifesto, which actually made its way onto the New York Times bestseller list, which is a mystery I'm still trying to fathom. Reporter Susan Schmidt, Michael Weiskopf, reporter scholars Bill Kovach and Tom Rosenstiel. All of them did very fine work. But for the real insider poop on this scandal, I'm afraid we're all going to have to wait until 2003, when Mr. and Mrs. Clinton will unveil in separate memoirs their precious secrets, offered at astronomical rates, of their time in the White House and their remarkable marriage. They both pleaded for a zone of privacy, you'll recall that, but then sold the right to their privacy to the highest bidder. Mr. Ex-President signed for a reported $12 million advance, breaking every record in publishing history, leaving even the Pope in his wake. And Mrs. Junior Senator from New York got a more modest $8 million advance. And why? Surely not because they are both Pulitzer Prize-winning writers, and surely not because of their wonkish excursions into healthcare reform. They got their estimated $20 million in book advances on a reckless publisher's hunch that now they were finally ready to tell the truth about their private lives, their loves, and their political lusts. Sure. In all these books, and there are many more, we've been able to learn much about the role of the independent counsel, the president's spin doctor, the Washington lawyers, the dark conspirators, the emotional intern, the matron's betrayal, the impeachment process. However, until now, the day-to-day doings of the reporter, editor, and anchor have not been subjected to serious, sustained analysis, which the journalist's powerful position in Washington truly warranted. In this scandalous story, the journalist deserved his or her time in the sun. The reason is that the journalist played an indispensable role in carrying the story from one side of the Washington battlefield to the other.